In this video, we're going to cover how to add metrics to your resume when you don't have metrics available. We're continuing to use Alan's resume as we have in the past couple of videos, and we're going to be using Alan's resume in the next couple of videos as well. So as we covered in the last video, there's a lot of metrics on Alan's resume. We have things like increase in engagement rate of 1,025% year over year, contributed to a 12% year over year increase, edited 100 plus pieces of high polished blog and video content. So in this video, we're going to cover what to do if you don't actually have those metrics, but you still want to quantify how much you did. So let's say, for example, you're a chef, you've cooked a lot of meals for people, you want to signify, yes, I've cooked a lot of meals, I didn't just cook like 3 meals, but you don't have the number. And this is something that was, I really appreciate, I've mentioned this before, but I noticed how when I was updating Alan's resume with him, Alan was very honest. And this is something that I really appreciate. And I think especially if people are really honest, this is very commendable. If someone is really honest, one thing that you might have trouble with when it comes to quantifying things is you might say, well, gosh, I want it to be accurate, but I don't know the actual number. What do you do? So here's the standard of honesty that I want to have on a resume. It's something I called honestly defensible. And what I mean by honestly defensible is that a hiring manager isn't going to care whether you did something 100 times or 101 times or 99 times. They don't care about that level of precision. What they care about is, did you do this once? Did you do it 100 times? Did you do it 1,000 times, right? Likewise, if we're talking about percentages, they're not going to care if it's, with exceptions, they're not going to care if you increased metrics by 40% or 41% or 42%. What they care about is, did you increase metrics? Did you decrease metrics? Did you increase metrics by a lot? Did metrics not change, right? So by estimating, we make it something that's honestly defensible. And what that means is, honestly defensible means that if you're in an interview and somebody asks, okay, how did you get this metric? You can honestly defend it. You can say, well, so let's say we use the example of a chef. Let's say you have a chef who's done a whole bunch of these meals that they've cooked. They've cooked like 1,000 meals, but they don't know how many, right? So they're thinking about, okay, how do I quantify this? So they say, well, I cooked an average of about maybe 10 meals a day. Actually, that's probably a little bit light for a chef. Let's say they cooked an average of 30 meals a day, and let's say that they worked on average 5 days a week, and they've worked for the past 12 months in this job. So when you average all that out, you multiply all that out. Well, let's say that you end up getting, okay, I did about 1,050 meals. You can say now on your resume, I cooked around 1,000 meals. And that's what I would consider honestly defensible. Because when you're in that interview and the person says, where did you get this number, 1,000? You can explain, well, I took average number of meals a day times the number of days in a week times the number of weeks in the year times the number of years that I worked, that sort of thing, or number of months that you worked. And so that's something that will satisfy pretty much any, I would say it'll satisfy pretty much any hiring manager who asks you where you got that metric from. But the most important thing here is it's quantifying that you did it a lot. Now, you might have situations where you try to quantify something and you realize you actually didn't do it that much. Like, let's say that you gave presentations, but let's say you only gave 3 presentations. When you quantify it, it's not that impressive. Maybe you take it off the resume, or maybe you don't highlight. Maybe how do I say this? The 3 presentations isn't something that's that impressive, but maybe you gave them up to CEO, and so the up to CEO becomes really impressive. Gave 3 presentations up to CEO level, or up to board level. So this is what we call estimating metrics, or adding metrics when you don't have metrics available. One way to do this in a very simple way is, let's go ahead right here. Manage an active blog by scheduling around 100 pieces of content. Now, you'll see that I have this kind of squiggly line here before the number. When I update resumes, if you look at the resumes, you'll probably see this frequently. This is a tilde, and what it signifies is around. It's a very quick way to demonstrate to the person who's looking at the resume, this is an approximation. This isn't an exact number. And this is going to, I would say this will satisfy most people if you can honestly defend it. Now, if, for example, let me give you an example of something that isn't honestly defensible. Let's say that you had a Kickstarter campaign. In this case, Alan had a Kickstarter campaign that raised over $31,000. Let's say somebody says, I had a Kickstarter campaign that raised $1,000,000, and it actually only raised $100. This is not honestly defensible, and that will look really bad if a person identifies that you just blatantly lied in your resume. Um, Now, I think that there are situations where managers will care about whether or not you've done something one or two times. If you're an actor and you say on your resume, I got one Oscar, that's going to be a big difference between zero Oscars, and it will be, people will care if you got one or two, right? That's where having an exact number is really important. I worked on someone's resume, which will be showcased in a future video, where the metric was basically one Emmy or recognized for one Emmy, and that's one where you want to get the exact number. You don't want to be estimating with those. But that's how to deal with um, estimating metrics when you don't have metrics, and that's something that I would recommend doing quite a bit. I've had a situation, for example, for my resume where I had I SQL was something I'd been using, which is a coding language, and I put something like I don't know what the exact number was, but let's say it was like 7,000 queries. And I remember I had an interview where the person was like, "Where did you get this number?" And I explained to them. I was like, "Well, I estimated out this and this and this, and I took this job and this job, and I did more SQL in this job and that job." And the person was totally satisfied. He's like, "Okay, I get it." What it's signifying is I did this a lot. I didn't just do this once or twice or three times. I did it somewhere around 7,000 times, and and that's something that's the purpose of that isn't to communicate I did this exactly 7,000 times. It's to communicate I did this a lot, and it's somewhere around this number that I've estimated. Another way of doing this is let's go down to this train 60 plus students. If you let's say that you know that you did somewhere between like 70 to 100, and you're like, what do I put? I don't know what it is. Should I average it? One quick way to do this is just take a number that you're really confident in. So like in this case 60, and then say 60 plus, or over here 10 plus. This is one where you don't need to do that tilde because you're like, okay, I know it's at least 10. It's somewhere 10 or north of 10, and so that's one way to do it as well. This is an important thing, and potentially depending on how much information you've been keeping track of for your resume bullets, you might find yourself estimating quite a bit, and that's okay. Just signify it by saying, I did this 10 plus times. I know I did it at least 10 times, or I did this around 100 times. You can use that tilde, which will be a quick way of demonstrating that. And then make sure when you go through your resume that from my, what I'm going to advise on is that you make your resume honestly defensible. It's something that you could honestly defend in an interview. Alan is one of a handful of people who have taken me up on the free resume help and career coaching that I've been offering recently. If you need help with your resume, please leave a comment on the video and I'll follow up. Alan's resume was used in this video with his permission. Thank you, Alan. New videos every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much.